So here we have a very recognizable scene compared to the last video, but there's a big difference. If I press 1 or 2, nothing really happens. But if I pick up the rifle and start shooting, you can see that I am hitting things and suddenly they are coming to life. They are growing, they are being animated. And the cool thing here is that all of them, the trees, the leaves, the grass, they're all using the same material. So it's all one material, which is called scalable foliage. Now, if we look at this material, we don't really see anything very special going on in here. We have a color and we have an hectare scale. And this material function we've also used before. So what exactly is happening that we now have individual control over all of these different meshes? Well, let's actually take a cube as an example. I'm going to copy this and then I'm going to create a new actor, blueprint actor, and call this BP dynamic cube. And I will paste the cube in here. So we now have our cube. And what we actually want to do is communicate from this blueprint with the material of the scalable foliage. Now it doesn't have a scalable foliage material. So first we want to create a dynamic material instance. So based on a certain material, which in our case is a scalable foliage, it's going to create a dynamic instance. So an instance of this scalable foliage material. I want to save this to a variable because this is something I want to work with. And I'm going to call this dynamic material. Probably add, let's stick with dynamic material. And now obviously we need to apply this to the mesh, or sorry, set the material on the mesh. Yeah. Apply it to the mesh by calling set material. Now, what does this do? Not that much yet, but we can see we're dragging in an orange cube that's floating in the sky. Sure, I'm okay with that. And now suddenly it turned gray because that is the default color of this material. So we can actually already see that our material is being applied. Now, what do we want to do? We want to change the color. So logically, you'll think to yourself, let's grab a reference to this dynamic material and say set color. Now we get curve color. But that's not what we want. We want to set color. This is a parameter on the material. This variable of the dynamic material has the variable type of material instance. So what does this mean? That tells us that it knows it is a material, but it doesn't know what material it is based on. It doesn't know that it is based on scalable foliage. So it's working with more abstract terms. So instead of saying set color, we need to work with parameters. So if I look for parameter, I have texture parameter, scalar parameter, all sorts of parameters, but we want the vector parameter because that, again, is our color. And because it doesn't know what material it's working with, it wants you to type the parameter name, and then it can actually do a search. I generally tend to copy paste things over, even if it's something as simple as color, because I'm bad at typing, and this way I don't make mistakes. And now we have this new value here, which we could set to red, for example. So now compile, press play, and suddenly our cube is red. That's cool. What if we were to promote this to a variable? And we'll call this color. And we make this instance editable. So compile, and now we have a red one. Maybe want a blue one, and I want a green one. It's more purple. Let's go proper blue. Now when we press play, suddenly we have a green, a blue, and a red cube, because on begin play, they are all being set properly. Now this is only happening when we're pressing begin play. If we wanted to speed this up, we could cut this to the construction script. And now suddenly we have real-time updates in colors, and every one of our meshes or every one of our dynamic cubes can have its own color. I'm going to keep this on begin play because the last thing I wanted to show here with regards to this was having some fun. What if we don't use this, but we actually split this up into a random float in range between 0 and 1. I always forget if I need to add 3 of these or if I can just use the one. I'm gonna do this. And let's say a delay of 0.2. And we'll have this little loop. Now when I press play, we got our cubes swapping colors every 0.2 seconds. Got our own little disco show going on. And that is pretty much how this testing environment was set up. We have our grass actors and we have our trees, but they very much follow a similar set of logic. They once again have a timeline for growing from this starting state to this end state. So you understand what type of functions I'm calling right now. I'm saying set vector parameter value, and I'm updating the color and the actor scale. And then on the construction script, I actually create a dynamic material instance, and we apply that material and we set the default for these actors. And then when the ball overlaps with an overlap sphere, which I've hidden because it would look hideous and terrible in this environment, then we can actually shoot these things and they'll individually update. Now, how well this would scale to a really big open map with all of the overlaps, not sure. I haven't run a stress test, but it works well in this environment. FPS is smooth, so I'm happy. And now we've got this cool individual effect compared to the material parameter collection where we created this global effect. In the next video, I want to have a look at how we can use materials to optimize some of our game and to help us out over there. So I hope to see you in that next one.